Part 62. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 611. The emperor was completely silent. It must be said that his daughter was not only strong and overbearing, but also good at talking. He was no match for her. The key point was that she made a lot of sense, and her words were sharp and hard to refute. That's enough. Concubine Xian picked up some food for the emperor, indicating that he could concentrate on eating. The emperor has already abdicated. Why are you still worrying about these things? Your Majesty can pass the throne to whoever he wants. You said your daughter is weak, but none of the princes of the Chu family in this generation is stronger than Qing Huang. If one of them really became emperor, maybe it would not be Beijiang that was destroyed today, but Ziki. These words directly hit the emperor's weak spot, leaving him speechless. Having been emperor for decades, no one knew the situation of Ziki in recent years better than him. All the improvements and prosperity were made after Qing Huang ascended the throne, which was more than 100 times stronger than his father. If it was one of Tiankuo, Tianyin, Tianzheng, the emperor couldn't even think about it. With the northern frontier emperor's ambitious attitude of wanting to start a war at any time, these people would have been scared to death. How could they still be strong? Strong as hell. The country didn't perish because of the blessing of their ancestors. Thinking of this, the emperor couldn't help but sigh softly. Okay, Qing Huang's courage and ability are really strong. He should believe that her vision of choosing a crown prince is no worse than her ability to govern the country. Anyway, the little princess is still young now. If she is really too weak to take on the responsibility of the world in the future, she can make another decision. After all, Qing Huang and Fu Kang are still young, and they can be in power for at least 40 to 50 years. What's the hurry? Maybe she can pass the throne directly to her grandchildren at that time. Chu Qing Huang, who was having a meal, had a subtle expression and silently glanced at the emperor, who was too self-evident. Pass it to her grandchildren? She didn't plan to sit on the throne for that long. No matter how wise an emperor is, once he reaches his old age and becomes confused, he is prone to making wrong decisions. Whether he is deceived by others or confused by himself, he will not have the energy and judgment of his youth, and he will not have the courage and majesty of his youth. If you want the country to prosper for a long time, it is the best policy to cultivate the next one and retire in time. Clinging to power will lead to serious consequences. However, these do not have to be explained clearly. Those who understand will understand, and those who do not understand may think that you are mentally ill. Even if everyone understands this truth, they may not be able to do it on their own. After all, power is really something that allows people to do whatever they want. How many people in the world have been striving for power all their lives? Who doesn't like it? It is really difficult to give up the power that you have finally grasped. After lunch, the emperor and concubine Xian went to rest. As for the current situation of the royal family, whether it was the Empress Dowager who was in confinement or Tiankuo who was imprisoned in the sky prison, the emperor had no interest in caring about it. Considering the love between husband and wife and father and son, it is not that he cannot talk to Qing Huang for mercy, but he cannot guarantee that they will give up after talking. If he does something he shouldn't do in the future, he may even lose his life. Rather than that, it is better to let him stay in the prison. At least he can save the lives of his wife and children. Thinking of this, the emperor felt that it was better for him to wait for the new year peacefully, and then continue to go out to travel. Other things should be left to Qing Huang to decide. He is too old to worry about these. So the court officials who were waiting for the emperor to come back to do something did not know at this time that the emperor had completely given up the idea of persuading Qing Huang after only one meal. Time flies. Year after year Chu Qing Huang sat in front of the mirror and looked at her face. Am I a little old recently? Fu Kang frowned and looked at her dissatisfiedly. What is your Majesty talking about? Now this face is my own, I have to take care of it, Chu Qinghuang said. Women dress up to please themselves. Fu Kang hugged her from behind and held her in his arms domineeringly. Nuan will always be the most beautiful. Chu Qinghuang sighed, youth is easy to pass away. Nuan's beauty is not in appearance, Fu Kang said in a low voice. There are many people in the world who are beautiful in appearance, but there will never be another Nuan. The face is easy to age, but the queen's character will last forever. Chu Qinghuang was silent for a moment, tilted her head and rubbed his face. My father wrote to us and asked us to take the children to Cangyun Mountain during the spring festival. My brother may also go. We can finally be reunited as a family. Are you happy? I'm happy, Fu Kang said, as long as master doesn't keep me in Cangyun Mountain to learn skills. Chu Qinghuang's mouth twitched. If my father heard this, he might keep you in the mountain to take care of them in their old age. Fu Kang thought for a while, then let master expel me from the section. Chu Qinghuang. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 612. In recent days, the atmosphere in the Imperial Study Room has been a bit strange. The reason is that Mr. Shen, the Minister of Household Affairs, always comes over for a walk and chats with them in a casual tone. Yu Qiubai and Lu Shen didn't think it was anything at first. After all, Mr. Shen has a higher official position than them and is Her Majesty the Queen. Loyal ministers and confidants in front of you. When he gave orders, they naturally followed them as best they could. But as time went by, they faintly realized that Mr. Shen was a drunkard who didn't care about drinking. He took the opportunity to come over to talk to Kyo, and the strange reactions Kyo showed every time were enough to prove that their relationship was unusual. Thinking about the rumors before the palace examination, Yu Qiubai and Lu Shen couldn't help but have some ideas. That, brother Qi Lu Shen found an opportunity and reminded Qi Yu in a low voice, does Master Shen have any hidden hobbies? Yu Qiubai is the grandson of the Grand Tutor. He has a relatively reserved temperament and would not ask such questions directly. On the other hand, Lu Shen has a straightforward personality and speaks directly when he has anything to say. Qi Yu was stunned, her expression slightly embarrassed. He doesn't have any weird habits, but what? Lu Shen stared at the blush on her face suspiciously. Brother Qi can't. No, absolutely not. Kyo shook her head quickly. I'm normal and I definitely don't have any shameful habits. Yu Qiubai raised his eyes and looked at her with a somewhat probing look. The lacquered moon felt like sitting on pins and needles. Damn Shen Zongjin, he did it on purpose, relying on his higher official position than her, to bully her into not being able to resist, say anything, or reveal the truth about his daughter's identity, deliberately making people misunderstand her. What a despicable and cunning old fox. The atmosphere did not improve until the Queen came to court. Upon hearing the sound of Her Majesty's arrival, the three people quickly stood up to greet her. Yuan Bao pushed open the door of the Imperial Study Room, and Chu Qinghuang walked in silently. The three rookie students bowed respectfully. Chu Qinghuang glanced at them thoughtfully and said lightly, "What happened just now?" The three of them were stunned and bowed their heads in silence. Whoever dares to speak first becomes the one who complains. Besides, Qi Yu said that she had no hobby for Zhongjin, so even if she had any hobby, it would just be Mr. Shen's wishful thinking. Silence lasted for a moment. Master Shen has just arrived. Qi Yu finally spoke first. I explained some things and left soon. Chu Qinghuang understood and raised his hand to tell them to get up. Several ministers from the Ministry of Revenue will come over to discuss matters later. You should listen carefully. If you don't understand anything, you can ask questions at any time. Yes. The Imperial Study is an important place for government affairs, not a place for you to spread your thoughts and make random suspicions. Chu Qinghuang glanced at the three of them expressionlessly. Kyo is a woman, and Zongjin is interested in her. She wants to marry her. It's that simple. No need to make a fuss. What? This was simply a sudden blow, which shocked Lu Shen to the point where he was tender on the outside and tender on the inside. Yu Qiubai also turned to look at Chi Yu in surprise. Woman. A woman disguised as a man? So the person who defeated him with an essay in the palace examination was actually a woman? No wonder she spoke clearly and eloquently about the benefits of women's self-improvement. It turned out that she was speaking from a woman's perspective. Chi Yu was also stunned on the spot and had no time to pay attention to the reactions of Yu Qiubai and Lu Shen. Her Majesty the Queen just said that. God knows how tired she is these days of hiding the truth about her daughter's identity and clarifying that she has no peach-splitting habit. Unexpectedly, Her Majesty the Queen actually told the truth directly and in a light tone, as if this matter was very common. The eerie silence lasted for a while. Chi Yu was still in shock. Yu Qiubai and Lu Shen didn't speak for a while, but they still couldn't accept it in their hearts. After participating in the palace examination with them and defeating two of their men, the young man who became their colleague, was actually a woman? Lu Shen seemed to have discovered some new continent, his eyes focused on Chi Yu's face. I had known. What did you know earlier? Chu Qinghuang glanced at him. I knew you were also disguising yourself as a man. Lu Shen was stunned. No. Her Majesty the Queen can actually joke. He is a man, how can he disguise himself as a man? It's more like a man pretending to be a woman. Let's get down to business, Chu Qinghuang said. In the future, don't act like you've never seen the world and focus on business. Other people's affairs have nothing to do with you, so don't make random assumptions. Yu Qiubai bowed and Lu Shen listened obediently. In addition, there is no need to make a big fuss about Chi Yu's disguise as a man. If I acquiesce, it is not a crime of deceiving the emperor. Chu Qinghuang walked behind the imperial case and sat down, but no matter whether it is a man or a woman, I have no privileges here. Everyone is treated equally. If you are capable and loyal, you will naturally be promoted and reused. If you are unable to retaliate, you will have no place in the court. Chi Yu, Yu Qiubai, and Lu Shen responded respectfully. There was a sound of footsteps outside, and Yuan Bao reported, "My lords are here. Let them come in." Chu Qinghuang waved his hand and motioned for the three of them to stand aside to make room for the adults. Listen carefully and take note carefully. I will take time to discuss matters with you individually before the end of the year to see how you have been recently. Performance. Kia was covered in cold sweat. Her Majesty the Queen is indeed a unique woman. Things that originally seemed earth-shattering to her were not worth mentioning, but the coercion revealed in her simple words made people feel deeply and she did not dare to take it lightly. The ministers filed into the imperial study and the meeting officially began. Three rookies who were well educated but had just entered the court stood aside, listening humbly and quietly, occasionally showing a thoughtful or understanding expression. The meeting did not take long. Her Majesty was resolute and would not waste too much time on the same thing. She made a decision quickly and did the next thing quickly. Decisive and wise. After the meeting, the ministers left. Chu Qinghuang left Chi Yu alone and asked the other two to go back first. Chu Qinghuang raised his eyes and glanced at her. If you want to go further in your official career, don't focus on love affairs recently. I'm not saying that you can't have love affairs, but you have to distinguish between the important and the unimportant. Kyo's face changed slightly. I won't dash. You have just entered the official career and you don't know anything at the moment. If you focus on love affairs, you won't be able to get promoted faster. Chu Qinghuang said in a light tone. You are the first female champion in Ziki to pass the imperial examination and serve as an official. I am willing to promote you, and I really need a female official like you who is ambitious for official career, but you must first recognize your identity. Kia pursed her lips and nodded slowly. I understand. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 613. Chu Suans, Wen Zhan, and Yun Heng also came in as top 3. They worked in the imperial study room for 2 years and participated in politics. After that, they were released to various ministries to gain experience and were quickly promoted. Chu Qinghuang took a sip of tea and said, "I don't know. I plan to limit your time too much. If you have the ability, 2 years of experience is enough. If your qualifications are mediocre, 2 years is enough to see if you have potential. Yes. If you choose this path, you must be prepared for gains and losses. What you want is not to be a boudoir woman trapped in the house, but to be a female official who shares my worries and does her part for the people." Kio's back was straight, but her attitude was extremely respectful. "Your Majesty, don't worry. I understand Your Majesty's intentions. I will do my best for my choice and will never live up to Your Majesty's expectations." And Tolerance pardoned her crime of deceiving the Emperor. If she fails to live up to her expectations, firstly, she will be ashamed of herself for taking such a big risk, and secondly, she will be sorry for Her Majesty the Queen's tolerance towards her. Chu Qinghuang nodded and said nothing more. For smart people, many words usually only need to be clicked. "Since you are working by my side, you will move into the palace starting tomorrow," Chu Qinghuang said. "I will leave you a place to live in the side hall of Changming Palace." Chi Yu knelt down and accepted the order. "Yes." After resigning, Chi Yu left the palace alone. She is still living in the Shen family. She will go back and tell Zhongjin tonight that she can move into the palace tomorrow. Thinking of being far away from that fox, Chi Yu never knew whether to feel lucky or melancholy. After walking out of the palace gate, Chi Yu looked up and saw Zhongjin Zhen standing not far away, waiting for her, her footsteps subconsciously stopping. Lord Chi Zhongjinsi smiled softly. "Let's go back together." Chi Yu didn't say anything. She silently got into his carriage and went back to Shen's house together, looking worried all the way. "What?" Zhongjin raised his eyebrows. "Were you reprimanded by His Majesty in the imperial study?" "No." "Then how do you look?" Kyo said nothing. The space in the carriage was too small, making her feel insecure. Some things are better to be said after getting off the bus. Arriving all the way to the Shen family, Chi Yu got off the carriage first and walked towards the Shen family's mansion. Zhongjin stared at her back thoughtfully and quickly followed. Master Shen. Kyo took a deep breath and whispered, "I will move out tomorrow." "Move away." Zhongjin's expression softened slightly, and his gaze fell slightly on her cheek. "Why?" "They all know the truth." Chi Yu lowered her eyebrows. "Both Yu Kaiubai and Lu Shen know that I am a girl, and it is not appropriate for me to live in the Shen family like this." "Do you know everything?" Zhongjin frowned. "Don't you fall in love with one of them?" Kyo's face changed. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Seeing her reaction, Zhongjin's expression softened slightly. "If you don't like her, why can't you live in my house? Men and women are not allowed to be intimate. You marry me and this problem will be solved." Zhongjin said in a matter-of-fact tone. "It is a normal thing, but you have to complicate it." Chi Yu is unhappy. Who made it complicated? It was obviously him, the fox, who trapped her step by step. "You said you would let me think about it before, but now I have thought about it clearly," Kyo said calmly. "I decided to put my official career first. A shadow suddenly shrouded his eyes. Chi Yu took a step back in fright. "What are you doing?" Chi Yu. Zhongjin raised his hand and pressed her against the tree, approaching her, trapping her tightly between his arms. "I want to kiss you." "No, no." Kyo's face turned red. "Don't mess around." "Why can't you mess around?" Zhongjin pursed his lips and looked at her. "Do you really have no idea about me at all? Don't you like me at all?" Kyo hesitated. "Is there any?" My career is going smoothly now, but Her Majesty the Queen won't let me get married. Kyo finally had the opportunity to use Her Majesty the Queen as a shield, and she breathed a sigh of relief. I can't resist the decree. Zhongjin was surprised. Real or false? Really? Chiyu nodded affirmatively. Her Majesty the Queen just talked to me, saying that I am the first female official in Ziki to pass the scientific examination and become an official. I need to assist Her Majesty the Queen in the future, and I cannot let the personal affairs of my children take up too much time. Much time and effort. Zhongjin calmed down and couldn't help but wonder if the Queen was deliberately trying to make things difficult for him. When Zhan's marriage went so smoothly, and Hongyu simply followed the cold and inhumane Duan Muguiu and started his important mission of saving the big devil. Why was it so difficult for him to get married and find a wife? Zhongjin thought sadly, his eyes falling on Chiyu's face. If I can get His Majesty to agree, tomorrow I will move to the palace. Zhongjin frowned. Is this what Your Majesty meant? This was like a bolt from the blue. From now on, even the advantage of being near the water was gone. Yes, Kyo nodded. I am a female officer. I will serve His Majesty from now on, and I will also be responsible for conveying His Majesty's orders. Isn't that the job of a chamberlain? Chiyu frowned. It's different. Unikyo Bao is only responsible for following orders and delivering edicts, while I have more responsibilities and are more miscellaneous. I have to understand everything and be able to do everything. I have the right to express opinions on matters in the court. After being promoted, you can also go to court to discuss matters with the ministers. Anyway, she is a female officer who follows Her Majesty the Queen and has to take care of all the big and small things. Zongjin was silent for a long time. Her Majesty the Queen did not say that she would not allow me to fall in love, but I have to wait until everything is settled. Kyo said in a low voice, if you can't focus on business, you know, it is very difficult for a woman like me to take the exam. Come up, you can't stay still, let alone decide your lifelong affairs so early. Zongjin was silent. He understood the truth. He didn't know anything when he first entered the official position. He had a lot to learn, but he was obsessed with having a romantic relationship. Why did she bother to study for so many years? Her Majesty the Queen did not mean to make things difficult for him. It's just that the purpose of Kyo's entry into the court was for her own official career, and for His Majesty, it was because she had an extra talent. Only getting married and having children was not in the plan. But who made him fall in love with such a woman? Zhongjin sighed. Okay, anyway, I can afford to wait. What are you doing? A roar sounded in the distance. You dare to act like this in broad daylight. It's simply ridiculous. Let's see if I don't beat you to death, you little beast. Zhongjin was startled, and turned around to see his angry father. He was puzzled at first, and then was pushed away by Chiyu, and then he realized how misleading their posture was at this time. His head went dark, and he quickly shouted, Father, listen to my explanation. Excuse me, Shen Yushi came over to him with a stick. If I don't beat you to death today, I won't be your father. Seeing that the situation was not good, Chiyu turned around and fled as fast as lightning, leaving Zongjin to deal with his father alone. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 614. New Year's Eve is coming in a blink of an eye. It's the annual New Year's Eve banquet again. In previous years, His Majesty was happy to be quiet, either because of the inconvenience of pregnancy or because the princess was still young. For 2 consecutive years on New Year's Eve, the ministers were sent back early to stay with their families. This year, Her Majesty the Queen and Her Majesty the Imperial Concubine have decided to have a grand New Year's Eve banquet. One is to celebrate the prosperity of the country and the people, the other is to celebrate the vastness of the territory, and the third is to wish for the prosperity of Ziki and the extension of the country. Fourth, I wish my son a long life and good health every year. The emperor and his subjects were enjoying themselves together. The emperor and concubine Xian were sitting on the throne, and the little princess Jinyu was sitting in her father's arms. Her little face, illuminated by the lights, looked like a little fairy who grew up in the heavenly palace. The ministers couldn't help but feel fond of such a beautiful and noble little princess, but when they thought that this little princess would inherit the country of Ziki and become the next generation of queen when she grew up, their emotions became particularly complicated. Why does Her Majesty always have such special ideas? How good it is for a man to be in power. The 3 palaces and 6 courtyards are flourishing, there are many princes and princesses, the royal family is prosperous, and the heirs are endless. This is the foundation for the longevity of the country. Women are bound by etiquette, and the 3 palaces and 6 courtyards are just a formality. What's more, even if there are 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, it is still the queen who suffers the pain of giving birth to a child. Why is this suffering? The ministers really couldn't understand the queen's thoughts. But Chu Qinghuang didn't need them to understand. Who said women must be bound by ethics? Who said that the 3 palaces and 6 courtyards must be for the purpose of prolonging the heirs? Men can find high-sounding excuses for their romantic behavior, and women can do the same. However, today is New Year's Eve, which is a joyful and lively festival. The ministers will not seek to make themselves unhappy, and Her Majesty the Queen is not interested in arguing with them. Brilliant fireworks exploded in the night sky. Everyone looked up and saw the colorful fireworks exploding in various shapes in the air, which were dazzling and stunning. Bang! 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 The little princess raised her head, and bright fireworks were reflected in her clear eyes. She seemed to have seen 100 years of prosperity, the iron horse glaciers, and the picturesque mountains and rivers thousands of miles away. The palace banquet was filled with the fragrance of fine wine, the hustle and bustle of the prosperous times, the laughter of New Year's Eve, and the graceful dancing of the singers and dancers. Jinyu Chu Qinghuang stood on the city tower holding her daughter, looking at the bright lights and the sound of firecrackers on the long street. Ziki is the Mother Emperor's kingdom now, and it will be yours in the future. If you want to become the master of the kingdom, you want to control others, you need to make yourself strong first. Jinyu looked into the distance, her eyes clear and deep. She is obviously just a child less than 2 years old, but her calm demeanor at this time makes people always inadvertently ignore her age. After the new year, the Queen Mother will start building a golden cage for you. Chu Qinghuang lowered his eyebrows and looked at her, but what kind of golden cage do you want? You have to draw it yourself. Jinyu looked away, looked at her hands, and slowly shook her head. No more. No more? Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows. Why? Too young. Jinyu curled her lips. When I grow up, I will make my own money. I will make a lot of money and build a golden palace. Chu Qinghuang laughed. Do you want to hide your beauty in a golden house? Jinyu thought for a moment and nodded slowly, her soft voice filled with natural domineering tone. Hidden beauties, many, many beauties, all the beauties in the world are hidden in the golden palace. Chu Qinghuang was stunned. All the beauties in the world? Jinyu nodded. My daughter seems a little greedy. Fuqiang came over and spoke slowly. Do you want all beauties, regardless of gender? I want a boy. Jinyu tilted her head and thought for a moment, her young face full of impatience. Girls are too delicate and cry, which is very troublesome. Chu Qinghuang smiled and said, not all girls cry and cry. Jinyu stopped talking. Anyway, what she thinks is trouble is trouble. Just say you just like good-looking boys, that's fine. Chu Qinghuang nodded her head, but you can't like too much, otherwise you won't be able to resist. Jinyu shook her head, it doesn't matter. Chu Qinghuang and Fuqiang looked at each other, and for a moment they couldn't decide whether their daughter was just a child or whether she really had such thoughts. Golden Palace. How big of a golden palace must be built to hide all the good-looking boys in the world? What a greedy little girl. Chu Qinghuang tilted her head. Fuekang. How long have we been together? Fuekang's lips raised slightly, 5 years. Excluding the year when he first entered the eldest princess's house, it should have started when Feng Jinzi was divorced, and that was when Nuan Nuan started to be with him. He was 17 years old that year. Now he is 22 years old, and time flies so fast. In the past 2 days, the officials have presented a lot of eulogies, and there are piles of them on the imperial records. There are relatively few from the capital officials, but more from local officials. Chu Qinghuang leaned on the city wall, although I never like to hear flattery, but New Year's Eve is a lively festival. I watched the officials pay their respects one after another, praising me as the queen for her hard work in governance, which made the world peaceful. The Qi River was clear and the sea was flowing, the economy was prosperous, and the soldiers and horses were strong. It's quite pleasant to watch. Fuekang smiled and stretched out his arms to hold both mother and daughter in his arms. Nuan Nuan deserves all the praise. But you still have to check for me and don't let me get carried away by these compliments. Nuan Nuan won't do it. Fuekang is very confident in her. Anyone can be dazzled by praise, but Nuan Nuan will never do it. Yet. Yes. Chu Qinghuang looked at the fireworks feast that rose and fell in the night sky, and her voice was faintly filled with satisfaction. I have a husband and a daughter in my life, I have ruled over the country, and I have ruled over the people. I don't ask for a good reputation, but at least I have been praised more than scolded during my reign, and my life is complete without regrets. With a considerate husband by her side, a well-behaved and intelligent daughter, and both parents alive, her life is indeed complete. Fuekang's eyes fell on her face, with boundless tenderness in his eyes. I am also complete. In this life, he can accompany her to witness the prosperity and grow old together, and his life has no regrets. The main text can be regarded as finished here. The following extra chapters will write about the plot of family reunion, Rongzhan CP, and other things that come to mind. The emotional lines of supporting characters will not take up too much ink. Someone mentioned Qi Ling. I don't think every supporting character must have a complete explanation. I haven't thought about what kind of woman should be paired with him, so I won't write about him. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 615. There is a holiday during the New Year holidays, which lasts from the 28th day of the 12th lunar month to the 6th day of the 1st lunar month. Every year, the holiday is this long, and this year is no exception. For Beijing officials, it is natural to spend time with their families during the rare New Year holidays, but it is a bit difficult for students from other places who have just started working and do not have their own residences. For a small official like Qi Yu who is not high-ranking and far away from home, it is naturally impossible to go home. After all, the journey is long, and the few days of New Year holidays are not enough. She could actually choose to stay in Changming Palace to work during the holidays. She didn't have anywhere to go anyway, but Shen Kongjin asked the queen for a favor in advance. Qi Yu is so pitiful to leave her hometown alone. It's the New Year, and she is even more lonely alone. I want her to spend the New Year at the Shen family. I hope your majesty will grant me permission. Chu Qinghuang said in a very light voice, the attendant female official of Changming Palace, you can leave if you want. Shen Kongjin hesitated, but the court officials are on holiday. So what? Shen Kongjin said in a small voice, shouldn't she also take a holiday? She has just joined the job not long ago, and she is the only female official I have entrusted with an important task. Since she can't go home during the New Year holidays, she can stay outside the palace to read the files, memorize the information and books of various departments, and have a detailed understanding of the ministers in the court. Chu Qinghuang said calmly, working with me, she is destined to have to endure more hardships. Shen Kongjin was melancholy, but still unwilling to give up. Then your majesty will give her 2 days off. Others have 8 days, Qi Yu can have 2 days at least. I can agree to your request, Chu Qing Huang said calmly, but there is one request. Your Majesty, please speak. After the new year, I will leave Beijing for a trip, and it will take about 2 months to go back and forth. Shenzongjin was surprised. Your Majesty is leaving again. Didn't you just come back from Yan Kingdom before the new year? You don't have to ask more. Chu Qing Huang ignored his questions. During my absence, you can meet Qi Yu at any time. I have only one request. After I come back, Qi Yu must memorize the information and background of all officials in the court, from the 1st to the 9th rank, from the Ministry of Works to the Ministry of War, family background, temperament, habits, temper, style of doing things. As long as she can answer fluently what I ask, I can give you more opportunities to get along with her in the future. Shenzongjin was silent for a moment, and slowly frowned. This seems unlikely to be possible. There are too many officials in the court. Each department has an average of more than 100 people. There are so many officials, big and small, and there are civil and military positions outside the 6 departments. For example, the Cabinet, Hanlin Academy, Wenyuan Pavilion, and other civil official positions, plus the princes, marquises, and dukes with titles. Shenzongjin himself can't do it. How can he guarantee that Qi Yu can do it? If you can't do it, forget it. Chu Qing Huang raised his hand and waved, kneel down. Your Majesty. Shenzongjin was helpless. I will do my best. Chu Qing Huang looked at him. You should know what the consequences of perfunctory treatment will be. I dare not. Shenzongjin took his leave and walked out of Changming Palace, looking at the blue sky, frowning deeply. Your Majesty will always give people problems. He is chasing his wife while helping His Majesty train a capable female official. Since Qi Yu's female identity was exposed well, it is limited to the imperial study, and the civil and military officials outside do not know the truth for the time being. After all, although Yu Qiubai and Lu Shen already knew about it, they didn't dare to go out and tell anyone without the Queen's order. What if this was a test from Her Majesty to see if they could keep the secret? Wouldn't they get into trouble if they told anyone? But even if they didn't say anything, the atmosphere in the imperial study was still subtle. Lu Shen couldn't help but secretly glance at her when he was looking through the files. When he was caught, he smiled awkwardly. Qi Yu, are you really a woman? Qi Yu was uncomfortable at first, but she had gotten used to it in the past 2 days. When she heard this, she just calmly replied to him, it's true. How can you, a girl, think of taking the imperial examination and becoming an official to steal the fame of us men? Qi Yu was unhappy when she heard this. Do you dare to say this in front of Her Majesty the Queen? Why don't you say that Her Majesty stole the men's fame? Hey, ancestor, I was wrong. You can't say this casually. Lu Shen hurried to Qi Yu and almost covered her mouth with his hand. If you want me to die, just say it directly. I can find a rope to hang myself, but don't let my family get involved. Qi Yu glanced at him, said nothing, and continued to work. Lu Shenshen took a deep breath and returned to his seat. He suddenly realized that only villains and women are difficult to raise. Yu Qiubai did not react to the dispute between the two. He just thought of what Qi Yu said, and couldn't help but think of the Empress, and the scene when he was arranged by the Queen Mother to meet the Empress in the garden. He felt it was a shame at the time, but the Queen never took it to heart. Maybe this is the bearing. Yu Qiubai stared at the files on the case in silence, and his thoughts were a little scattered. Sir Shen, a respectful greeting sounded outside. Yu Qiubai came back to his senses instantly. Shenzongjin hummed lightly, I'm here to deliver the memorial, is it convenient to go in? Sir Shen, please come in. The door of the imperial study was quickly opened, and Shenzongjin walked into the imperial study calmly. The 3 young counselors stood up to greet, Sir Shen. Shenzongjin hummed, his eyes swept across Yu Qiubai and Lu Shen's faces, and finally fell on Qi Yu's face. You three have just arrived not long ago, have you adapted? Qiyu did not speak. Fortunately, I have adapted, Lu Shen replied. Thank you, Mr. Shen, for your concern. Zhong Jin glanced at him calmly, wanting to say that I don't care about you, but when he saw Qiyu, he was in a good mood. He turned around and put several memorials from the official department on the imperial desk, then turned and walked out. As he closed the door, he said, "You guys go about your business. The royal study needs to be serious. Don't whisper to each other casually or get into trouble. You must pay attention to the manners of officials. If you are impeached in front of Her Majesty the Queen, you will suffer the consequences." Throwing this warning aside, he turned and left. The three people who stayed in the royal study looked at each other for a while, and Lu Shen sighed, "Are we innocent and being angered?" "Who made you angry?" Qiyu sat down and continued working. "He is not smart, so just think he is kindly reminding us to pay attention to the rules, and don't think too much." Lu Shen was silent, his brain was not working well. Which junior official who has just entered the court would dare to insult his superior like this? Master Shen is clearly not here to remind me, but to warn us not to have any thoughts on you. Lu Shen curled his lips, as a man who doesn't understand his little thoughts. Qiyu had a strange expression. "What's the little idea? Don't talk nonsense." "Are you talking nonsense? Do you know in your heart that when will Mr. Shen need to deliver the memorials from the Ministry of Official Affairs in person? He just deliberately found an excuse to come and see you." Lu Shen frowned, "but having said that, Mr. Shen is here today. This reminds me that the future fate of us junior officials is in the hands of the officials. The Ministry of Personnel is in charge of the assessment, rewards, punishments, promotions and demotions of all officials. Those who are noticed by His Majesty may be promoted by Chrysostom. Those who are not noticed by His Majesty will be evaluated and discussed by the officials of the Ministry of Personnel. It can almost be said that the future and destiny are in the hands of senior officials of the Ministry of Personnel." Thinking of this, Lu Shen sighed softly. "It's better to be cautious in your words and deeds in front of Master Shen from now on. If he puts on our shoes, our career will end here." Qiyu frowned and wanted to refute him. "No," Yu Bai said calmly, "with Her Majesty the Queen here, no official in the court dares to use power for personal gain or avenge private affairs." Lu Shen was stunned when he heard this, and then nodded slowly. "Brother Yu is right." Qiyu then quietly closed her mouth, buried her head in the file, and said no more. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 616. That night when he was off duty in the imperial study, Zhong Jin told Qiyu about going to the Shen family for the holidays. Qiyu frowned. "Isn't this against the rules?" "Your Majesty agreed." Qiyu was slightly surprised, then fell silent, as if she was thinking about something. After a moment, she said, "The New Year's holiday is an opportunity for me." "What chance?" "Her Majesty the Queen has temporarily put down her royal duties. In this rare leisure time, I can ask your Majesty some more things so that I can serve your Majesty in the future." Qiyu lowered her eyebrows and said, "I want to learn more things." Zhong Zongjin's expression was faint. "Does this mean you don't want to celebrate the festival?" Qiyu heard that his tone was not quite right, and she felt a little guilty for some reason. She coughed lightly and said, "It's not." Zhong Jin looked at her expressionlessly. Qiyu's scalp was numb when he looked at her, and she suddenly felt that she was a little ignorant. Then, "Can't I go?" Kyo couldn't withstand the attack from his eyes. In addition, during this period of time, she always went back on her word, and she always felt that she lacked confidence when facing Sheng Jinshi, but you know, this New Year's Eve, it should be in the palace. "Let's go back together after the New Year's Eve banquet," Zhongjin said. "Tomorrow morning, you and I will eat dumplings together on New Year's Eve. Don't you have to go into the palace to pay New Year greetings to His Majesty tomorrow?" "No need." Zhongjin shook his head. In the past years, Her Majesty the Queen did not have the habit of letting others pay New Year greetings. She likes to get together with her family. Even if there are no officials paying New Year greetings, the Changming Palace is not deserted. After all, there are so many palace people making dumplings together in the morning. It is lively and the atmosphere is enough. Besides, there are also the Supreme Emperor and concubine Xian this year. They should eat dumplings with His Majesty and the imperial concubine. Okay, don't think so much." Zhong Zongjin reached out and pinched her ears. "Your Majesty only gave you 2 days off. You have to go back to Changming Palace on the 3rd day of the New Year. Even if I want to keep you in the Shen family for a long time, I won't dare to disobey His Majesty's will even if I stay here for a few days." Kyo said, "Oh," still not knowing what to say. After hesitating for a long time, she felt a little sorry for Zhongjin. "My lord, have you ever thought about marrying a wife who is virtuous and capable of running a household?" Zhongjin frowned and looked at her displeased. "Actually, I am not suitable for you. You are not young now. Most of the young masters from aristocratic families already have children." "You are wrong," Zhong Zongjin said slowly. "Since Her Majesty the Queen ascended the throne, the age at which the princes of the imperial family get married has increased again and again. Before the weak crown, there were very few people who got married, and they usually only married when they were around 25 years old. Give birth to a child. Why? Think for yourself." Kyo was silent for a while and explained, "The point I just expressed is not about my age, but my temperament and identity. To adults, it may be." "What's wrong with your status?" Zhong Zongjin raised his eyebrows. "Your official position is still small now. When His Majesty puts him in a position of importance in the future, you will be a veritable celebrity in the imperial court. Moreover, you don't have to worry about the royal wife being jealous. Then you will be able to. It's just that I, my lord, have flattered you." His voice faltered, and Zhongjin suddenly thought of something and squinted at her. "Are you just thinking that if you get promoted and become a popular person in front of His Majesty, you can marry someone better?" Chi Yu frowned and looked at him with strange eyes. "Master Shen really thinks too much. Do you think other men are as confused as you? When you have time, you can go to the market and find out the standards for choosing wives by young men from aristocratic families. Who doesn't want to be virtuous and virtuous? I will only be classified as unruly. Who dares to marry me?" Zhongjin thought to himself, "You know nothing. The standard for a young man from an aristocratic family to choose a wife is naturally virtuous, beautiful, and smart, but the most important thing is family background. Why should we look at family background? Strong marriages are also made possible by connections and influence. Kyo herself has connections. When she really reaches the level of a famous person in the imperial court, I am afraid that all the officials in the court will rush to get their sons to marry her. However, the imperial celebrity cannot do it in 3 or 2 years. What are you thinking, sir?" Zhong Zongjin came back to his senses. "You don't need to call me sir, it's too unfamiliar. Your Majesty's official position is higher than mine. What would you call me if you don't call me sir?" Zhongjin said, "You can call me Brother Jin." "Brother Jin?" Kyo's expression cracked for a moment, and she looked at him strangely, as if she was looking at some strange creature. "What's wrong?" "Nausea." Kyo cursed. She would not utter such a disgusting name. But no matter what, Kyo did as Zongjin wished. On New Year's Eve, she packed up 2 pieces of clothes and moved to Shen's house. In fact, she herself was not sure whether she acquiesced to Zongjin's pursuit. She used to worry about the issue of whether men and women would be intimate, but now she seemed to think it didn't matter anymore. Zongjin seizes every opportunity to get along with her, and is determined not to give anyone a chance, although not many people know that Chiyu is a girl. But there were 2 young men from aristocratic families in the imperial study room who were not yet married, especially Yukaiubai, who looked elegant and noble, and had a bookish air about him. There was no guarantee that Chiyu would not be tempted by him. Zongjin had to guard against it. However, on New Year's Eve this year, Shen Yushi was obviously unhappy. Looking at Kyo being brought home again, he almost wanted to yell, "Zongjin!" Kyo was startled, turned around and looked at Shen Yushi, who came angrily, and bowed politely, "Master Shen." Yes, Censor Shen is also called Lord Shen, and Shen Kongjin is still called Lord Shen. Chiyu sighed, thinking that it was not her who wanted to come, but Shen Kongjin who insisted that she come. If Censor Shen is angry, please make sure to vent it on your son. Father, calm down. Shen Kongjin stretched out his hand and pulled his father aside, whispering, "This is the task given to me by Her Majesty the Queen, let me take care of her." Censor Shen said angrily, "You are talking nonsense. If father does not believe it, you can go to the palace and ask Her Majesty the Queen now." Censor Shen choked, and his anger subsided. "Is it really Her Majesty's idea?" "It really is." Shen Kongjin nodded with great certainty. He did not intend to let his father know that Chiyu was a girl for the time being. It was okay to be suspected of being a homosexual, anyway, no one could be sure. But men and women should not be close to each other. His father was an old-fashioned man who attached great importance to etiquette. If he knew that he was so close to a little girl, I was afraid he would not know what his reaction would be. Why? Chiyu has just entered the court, her official position is still low, and she doesn't have her own residence, but her home is so far away from the imperial city, so she definitely can't go back for the new year, so. Censor Shen understood. His eyebrows were slightly frowned, and he quietly turned his head to look at Chiyu, who was still a teenager, and was indeed quite pitiful. The censor was silent for a moment, and looked at Shen Zongjin coldly. "In short, you'd better not have any inappropriate thoughts, and don't make bad rumors, otherwise I won't forgive you." After saying this, he turned and left. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 617. Zhong Zongjin turned back to Chiyu and said, "Let's go." "Nailed it? I think I'd better not come here in the future." Kyo frowned, with a subtle expression. "Every time I see the eyes of Master Yushi, I feel like a shameless mouse." Zhongjin turned his head and glanced at her. This mouse has a small face as big as a palm, with fair skin, a pair of clear and clean eyes that seem to be free from dust, and eyelashes that are long and curled, making them beautiful. Tisk. Zhong Zongjin chuckled, "Is there such a beautiful mouse as you?" Chiyu was stunned for a moment, then glared at him angrily. "I'm serious, I'm not kidding you." Zhong Zongjin raised his hand and knocked her on the head. "I'm serious, aren't you prettier than a mouse?" Kyo. The 2 of them walked into the courtyard one after another. The maid who passed by saluted and left quickly. Shen Zongjin raised her hand to close the courtyard door and took Chiyu to the house where she lived before. "Your residence has been reserved for you, and there are people there every day. Clean it up." Kyo didn't know what to say, so she could only say, "Thank you." "You're welcome." Zhong Zongjin stepped over the threshold with a leisurely voice. "Anyway, you will become the hostess here sooner or later." "Who sooner or later?" "You." Zhong Zongjin turned around, looked at her with a smile, stretched out his long arm and pressed her against the door panel. "Chiyu, do you still want to reject me?" Kyo was startled, Her slender body pressed tightly against the door panel. What are you doing? Don't mess around. I'm not messing around. Zhongjin was smiling obviously, but his eyes gradually deepened and his voice became much deeper. Chiyu. Kyo swallowed. What? Am I good looking? Chiyu looked at the face so close to her, and said in good conscience that it was definitely good looking among men, and not just average. It's not bad. Zhongjin raised his hand and hooked her hair. What do I do to you? Chiyu thought of how Zhongjin had taken care of her intentionally or unintentionally these days, and how he had interceded for her in front of Her Majesty the Queen. She even thought of the reason why she could work calmly in the imperial study and face Her Majesty the Queen every day without worrying about her daughter's identity being revealed. It can be said that Shen Zongjin contributed a lot. Although this man always had a mean mouth and always bullied her before, but overall, he was still very good to her. Although it's good for a purpose, well, it's really good. Unable to say anything against her will, Kyo could only nod honestly. It's not bad. Then do you think I will be a qualified husband? Kyo's heart skipped a beat. How do I know? Zhongjinpo said helplessly. Her Majesty the Queen asked you to focus on business for the time being, but she didn't say not to let you think about these things. You can't do two things at the same time. Kyo tried to keep him away from her. Get out of the way first, it won't be convenient to talk. It's nothing inconvenient. Zongjin's voice was gentle and beguiling, with a bit of a smile. Are you worried that I will eat you? Kyo couldn't help being nervous and pretended to be fierce. If you do this again, I will file a complaint with Her Majesty the Queen. Zhongjin slowly lowered his head, looking at her pink and red lips. Kyo's expression changed. Zongjin. Zhongjin stopped moving, saw the uneasiness and resistance in her eyes, and pursed his lips slightly. You hate me. This is wrong. Chiyu took a deep breath. Zongjin, although I have masculine ambitions, studying for scientific examinations, and becoming an official, it does not mean that I don't care about men and women. I cannot accept this. We don't have any relationship yet. I don't want to. Zhongjin was silent for a moment and said in a low voice, sorry, I scared you. As he said that, he took a step back. Kyo breathed a sigh of relief, trying to ease the embarrassment in front of her. It's not that I don't like you, nor do I hate you, but I can't accept it so quickly. She hasn't put her mind on the relationship between a man and a woman yet, and even if she does fall in love, she can't accept any physical contact before getting married. Zhongjin snorted. I understand, you don't need to explain. Chiyu bit her lip. No need to explain. She felt the need to explain. I'm going to the palace to attend the New Year's Eve banquet tonight, and I might not be back until very late. Zhongjin said, do you want to sleep first? Chiyu shook her head. No need. Then go take a shower, change your clothes and take a rest. Kyo still shook her head. I won't do anything to you. Zhongjin sighed, regretting that he scared her. I have to tell you something in advance. Kyo raised her eyes to look at him. Her Majesty the Queen left the imperial city after the New Year's Eve party and left me a mission. I should say, she left a mission for you. Kyo was surprised. You left me a task. Zhongjin told her Chu Qinghuang's request. Chiyu was speechless after hearing this and was speechless for a long time. So, when His Majesty leaves after the New Year, I have to be with Master Shen every day. Zhongjin was silent. You don't want to? Not really. Kyo just felt uncomfortable. Your Majesty is not in the imperial capital, so you don't have to accompany him every day. Naturally, you need to spend more time on the tasks assigned by His Majesty. I will sort it out for you when the time comes, which is better than having to sort it out and memorize it by yourself. Good. Kyo was right. There are so many officials in the court, and it is not an easy task to not only remember their background information, but also to understand their temperaments. preferences and behavior styles. But Chiyu can understand what His Majesty means. She is the only official female official beside Her Majesty the Queen. She is still in the initial stage. In the future, she wants to be His Majesty's assistant. The more she knows about officials, the better she will be able to advise His Majesty when necessary. It can also more accurately judge officials' thoughts during discussions. You take a rest first, I'll have someone bring you some food. Zhongjin turned around to leave. Master Shen Chiyu stopped him and spoke hesitantly, it's not that I hate Master Shen getting close to me, but I'm just not used to being intimate yet. I hope you understand. Zhongjin smiled, reached out and rubbed her head, I know, I was the one who was rude just now, I will apologize to you. Kyo said no. Zongjin turned and left. Kyo stood in front of the door, staring at his tall and thin back, frowning slightly, thinking of his actions just now, her cheeks heated up unconsciously. What a contradictory man. Kyo curled her lips. When a gentleman is a gentleman, he is very gentlemanly and does good deeds without leaving his name behind. When he teases people, he doesn't act like a gentleman at all. When he was serious, he seemed extra steady and considerate, as if she had misunderstood him. Kyo walked to the window and sat down, listening to the sound of firecrackers outside, and it seemed that even the smell of the food was particularly clear. The atmosphere of the new year is very strong, and every household is busy. She was the only one with nothing to do. The Shen family was also busy, but no one came to disturb Zhongjin in his yard, so Chiyu could have some peace and quiet. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 618. In the evening, the two of them went to the palace to attend a palace banquet. The fireworks and firecrackers were set off until midnight. The entire night sky was filled with dazzling lights, like meteors streaking across the sky. It was shocking to watch. It seems that the glory of the prosperous age is right in front of you. At midnight, Her Majesty the Queen and her husband left their seats and climbed onto the tower with their daughter in their arms. Kyo was the accompanying female officer and stopped halfway, so as not to disturb the three of them. Her Majesty, such a great emperor, turned out to be a dedicated woman. One person in this life is enough. Thinking about the beauties in the 3 palaces and 6 courtyards of the emperors in the past, Chiyu couldn't help but sigh. Is this the difference between men and women? When a woman falls in love with someone, she can love him for a lifetime, but most men are fickle. Perhaps in their hearts, feelings are never as important as power. On the way back to Shen's house after the banquet, Chiyu had a brief discussion with Zhongjin on this issue. Zhongjin said that it is not the difference between men and women, but that when you love deeply, you will naturally be willing to give up flowers and plants. It's not that Her Majesty the Queen cannot have 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, she just doesn't want it. She can reach the 95th 5-year plan by virtue of being a woman, so does she still care about secular ethics? Etiquette can be formulated by herself. Besides, the Queen is not the only one in the world who has given up on the 3 palaces and 6th courtyard, the Emperor in Dongling has also given up. Kyo was surprised, really? I'm not lying to you. Zhongjin nodded, although I am a man, I will treat my wife wholeheartedly in the future. There will be no concubines or intercourse. Kyo felt a little hot for no reason, whether you have sex or not, what does it have to do with me? Why is it none of your business? Zhongjin smiled happily, my future wife is only you and no one else. Although Kyo has great ambitions, among men and women in this world, as long as they have normal emotions and desires, who doesn't like the feeling of being cared about wholeheartedly? What's more, Zhongjin is actually an attractive and handsome man. He is young, promising, charming, and has a gentle and funny personality. Kyo could refuse his confession once or twice, but once it happened more than once, she couldn't help but become a little unable to resist, and secretly she gradually accepted the existence of this person. You have your ambitions, and I have my pursuits. When Zhong Jin became gentle, he was simply the most considerate man in the world. You aspire to have an official career. For the time being, we will focus on the official career. After the new year, we will get started first. It's time to get started, complete the task Her Majesty has left for you, and give yourself 2 years to practice. After 2 years, if you don't like anyone else, can you marry me? Chi Yu couldn't help but feel a little moved after hearing what he said. It can be said that at this time, Shen Zongjin was so gentle and considerate that no one could refuse. Giving her 2 years to determine her feelings would not delay her career, but would also give her more time to determine her feelings. He had even considered the possibility of falling in love with another man in the future. How could she refuse such a man? So Kyo could only nod, yeah. But Chi Yu, who was as innocent as a rabbit emotionally, didn't know at this time that Zhong Jin would never give her a chance to fall in love with another man. Generous. People who are emotionally generous are all fools. Instead of fighting for the person they like, they give her up to others. Unless he's out of his mind. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 619. Chu Qing Huang only went to court for 9 days after the new year. The Lantern Festival in Ziki was very lively. She and Fukang took their daughter out of the palace to watch the lanterns, guess charades, and play the game of throwing pots, enjoying a happy time as a family of 3. After arranging the government affairs the next day, Chu Qing Huang left the imperial capital with her daughter, and the family of 3 went to Canyon Mountain. The weather was still cold in the first month of the year, so Chu Qing Huang took her daughter on the road in a carriage for more than half a month. In February, the weather got warmer, which was perfect for fun. However, in the spring, the temperature suddenly changes from warm to cold, and the temperature difference between day and night is large. Adults can handle it, but children are weaker after all. Jin Yu accidentally caught a little cold, which is not serious, but he coughs twice from time to time, which makes Fukang feel bad. What can we do? Fukang frowned. The medicine in the shop is too bitter, can Jin Yu drink it? Chu Qing Huang glanced at her daughter and said calmly, no need to take medicine. Don't go out in the carriage for the past 2 days. Drink more hot water and don't catch cold again. It should be fine. Fukang was still worried. Chu Qing Huang said, we will arrive at Canyon Mountain in 2 days. There are miracle doctors on the mountain. Then I will ask them for 2 bodybuilding pills to give Jin Yu a tonic, so that he will no longer suffer from cold and cough in the future. After hearing this, Fukang thought this was a good idea. Jin Yu didn't react at all, and her cough wasn't very severe. It's just that the little princess has mysophobia, and occasionally she would have a little runny nose, which made her unhappy. So in the next 2 days, Chu Qing Huang found a place to stay every evening. After settling down, he began to cook ginger soup and give Jin Yu ginger soup and hot water. The taste of ginger soup is really not very good and Jin Yu doesn't like it. Ginger soup is used to treat wind and cold. It will definitely not taste good, but it's not beautiful if you always have such a runny nose. It may become swollen over time. When you get to Canyon Mountain, let your grandfather, grandmother, uncle, and their children see it. How much will it cost, affects your little fairy image. So Jin Yu frowned and forced herself to drink the ginger soup. Fukang truly admires Nuan Nuan. Unexpectedly, Nuan Nuan is not only good at managing the world, but also very good at managing her daughter. Can children drink ginger soup? Chu Qing Huang said, it's okay to drink a small amount. It's better than drinking those bitter decoctions. I drank ginger soup for 2 consecutive days, a small bowl each morning and evening. Near the foot of Kangyun Mountain, Jin Yu's cold was basically recovered. Although she still coughed twice occasionally, her runny nose that affected her appearance was much better. The little princess was relieved about this. A family of 3 walked up the stone steps up the mountain. Suddenly, a delicate girl's voice came from the foot of the mountain, "Uncle, wait for me." Chu Qinghuang and Fukang stopped walking and turned to look. Rongzhan, who used to always wear a brocade white military uniform, today only wore a casual robe, and was walking quickly up the mountain, followed by a girl in a purple skirt like a butterfly. "What is going on?" Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows. "When did the second brother arrive?" Rongzhan quickly walked up to Chu Qinghuang and replied casually, "I arrived 2 days ago. I stayed on the mountain and didn't dare to come up." "Why are you here so early?" "I came here on horseback, which is of course faster than your family's ride in a carriage," Rongzhan said, his eyes falling on Jin Yu's face. "Is this my little niece? She's so pretty, give me a hug for uncle." Chu Qinghuang handed his daughter to him. Rongzhan took Jin Yu and looked at her from left to right. The girl next to him stood dissatisfied. "I want to hug her too." So Chu Qinghuang's eyes fell on her face so naturally. She was a delicate and tender little girl with starry eyes and white teeth, and her skin was radiantly white. She looked like she was only 16 or 17 years old. Although this lively and interesting expression at this time is quite cute, but... Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows with interest. "Second brother, who is this girl?" "I am her fiancé." The girl bent towards Chu Qinghuang. "I have met my sister." Chu Qinghuang's expression was slightly silent, and then he said leisurely, "Second brother has not been married for so many years. It turns out that he likes old cows to eat young grass." "Don't talk nonsense." Rongzhan frowned and looked at the Zileshu woman. "Who is your fiancé?" "I have nothing to do with you." The girl pursed her lips and said unconvinced, "We have all been eating and sleeping together for so long, and you actually don't admit it." Rongzhan's expression changed. "Stop talking nonsense to me. I want to hug her too." The girl stretched out her hand towards Jin Yu. "What a cute little fairy, so beautiful. Auntie, give her a hug." Chu Qinghuang silently glanced at this little ant with an expression that was hard to describe. "Sister, listen to my explanation." "There is nothing to explain." Chu Qinghuang walked up the mountain. "My father and mother must have urged me that my second brother has not gotten married for so many years, but what is more serious than not getting married is that you are in your 30s, and you are so excited. For such a tender little girl, I guess your father will give you a severe beating." The girl holding the little princess heard this and immediately explained, "I am not young anymore, I am not a little girl." Chu Qinghuang turned his head and looked at her. "How old are you?" 28. Chu Qinghuang looked at the other party's naturally cute eyes and wanted to know how she could reveal this age without changing her expression. "Really, sister queen, don't believe it? I'm really 28. The girl emphasized her tone. "I'm just naturally beautiful with a baby face, and there's nothing I can do about it." "Okay." Chu Qinghuang gave up worrying about this issue. "It doesn't matter whether I believe it or not, as long as my father believes it." "Sister queen, do you want to know how we met?" The little girl seemed not afraid of strangers at all, nor was she afraid of the identity of Queen Chu Qinghuang. She started chatting familiarly. "I heard that sister queen is the king of a country. Don't you have 3,000 beauties in your harem?" Fukang followed behind, walking side by side with Rongzhan. Hearing these words, he silently glanced at the back of the little girl's head. Rongzhan didn't care, he only focused on the little princess in his arms. "Who does this child look like? Does he look more like Nuan Nuan?" Fukang looked back. "Yeah. I don't think it's very similar." Rongzhan glanced at Jin Yu, then turned to look at Fukang. "Maybe it's more like you." Fukang was silent for a moment. "Oh. Anyway, it's him and Nuan Nuan's daughter, they can look like anyone." How old is second senior brother this year? Fukang was suddenly curious. Rongzhan frowned. Why do you ask? Fukang coughed lightly. It's nothing, I'm just curious. Rongzhan snorted softly. Curious? I wonder if he is an old cow eating young grass. I have nothing to do with her, Rongzhan emphasized again. I don't plan to get married in this life. I told my father before that I should take this girl with me when I go back. Let's see which young master in Ziki returns. If you don't get married, you can decide on a marriage. Chu Qinghuang was too lazy to pay attention to him. I think she is a good match for the second senior brother, Fukang said truthfully. Although the second brother is a bit older, he still looks young, and when he is charming, he is also a military commander with military power. In the eyes of the little girl, she is very masculine, so it is normal for her to like the second senior brother. Rongzhan looked at him expressionlessly. You also want to be a matchmaker? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 620. The men were all fast, and even the little girl who came with Rongzhan was a hidden master. Rongyu was walking with Nan 11 on the mountain. When Rongzhan and Nuan arrived at the foot of the mountain, they received the news, but did not send anyone to greet them, letting them come up by themselves. Zhaner came 2 days earlier, and his brother should be here soon. Nan 11 stood on a huge rock in the mountains, looking at the mountains. After they leave, let's go back to Dezhou and live for a while. Rongyu nodded. The sound was getting closer and closer down the mountain, and the two turned their heads to look. Nuan and a young girl were walking and chatting in front, and Rongzhan and Fukang were following them slowly behind. Rongzhan was holding a girl in his arms. Nan 11 smiled and walked over with Rongyu. Father, Mother. Chu Qinghuang saluted and stretched out her hand to Rongzhan's arms. This is Jinyu. Rongzhan handed the child to his mother and saluted. Father, Mother, I'm fine. Father, Mother, I'm fine. The girl saluted. My name is Lulu, and I'm Uncle Rongzhan's fiancé. After the voice fell, the whole process was silent. Rongyu and Nan 11's eyes fell on Rongzhan's face. Who is your father and mother? Rongzhan stared at Lulu, resisting the urge to reach out and knock her on the forehead. Don't shout. Nan 11 raised her eyebrows slightly. Zhan Mother, you know, she's talking nonsense. Rongzhan raised his hand and swore, I have nothing to do with her. Nan 11 frowned. Nothing to do with her. Why did you bring that girl to Kangyun Mountain? Father, Mother, Uncle Rongzhan and I have already decided to spend our lives together. Lulu ignored Rongzhan's sophistry and said confidently, I have a deep love for Uncle Rongzhan, and I will not marry anyone but him in this life. I hope that father and mother can understand clearly. Nan 11 looked at the girl, and then looked at Rongzhan. Lulu? Do you know how old Rongzhan is? He doesn't get along with you very well. Mother. Chu Qinghuang added slowly, this Miss Lulu said she is 28 years old, so second brother is not an old cow eating tender grass. Nan 11. Several pairs of eyes looked at the humble and unpretentious little girl in front of them, and wanted to know where to see that she was 28 years old. A trick to keep youth and turn back to youth. Miss Lulu, 28 years old means 16 years old, not 28 years old. Nan 11 smiled and explained gently, you and Rongzhan are too different in age. Mother. Lulu blinked, I like older people. Mother, please fulfill my wish. Rongzhan's scalp was numb, and he wanted to throw her off the cliff. Fukang stood aside without saying anything. Chu Qinghuang watched the scene leisurely. Second brother, since Miss Lulu likes Lao Niu, you should obey her. Rongzhan's face darkened. Sister, I'm not old yet. He is in the prime of life, how can he be old? How can his father and mother deal with it if he is said to be old in front of his father and mother? Rongyu didn't say anything. If it was his son who abducted such a young girl, he would definitely give him a family punishment, but now it is obvious that this little girl named Lulu is chasing Rongzhan, so he can't do anything about it. You can't catch the little girl and beat her up. As for Nan 11, compared to their age difference at this time, Nan 11 was more surprised that this girl was bold. Not only could she talk and laugh in front of Rongzhan and Nuan Nuan, but she was not afraid of Rongyu at all. It can be seen from this that the innocent and cute appearance is just an appearance. This is a girl with courage and determination, so her feelings should not be a momentary impulse. Go in and sit down and talk. Nan 11 lowered her eyes and looked at the exquisite and beautiful little granddaughter in her arms, her face full of love. Your name is Jinyu? What a nice name. Not only is the name nice, but the meaning is also good. Jinyu pointed to the noble palace in front of her. I want this. Nan 11 was stunned. Rongyu tilted his head to look at her. What do you want? Jinyu looked at him and spoke clearly, the palace on the mountain. Why? Nan 11 was puzzled. The scenery here is good, but there are not as many pavilions and palaces as in the palace dash. It's beautiful here. Jinyu stretched out her white little finger and pointed to the mountains. You can hide beauties, collect many, many beauties. Nan 11's expression was strange for a moment. Many, many beauties. The little granddaughter is ambitious. This child is probably born to like beauties. Chu Qinghuang sighed. Everyone in our family is loyal, and Jinyu came here specifically to break the good tradition. She has been like this since she was a child, and she won't grow up, Nan 11 said, but even if she grows up, it doesn't matter. Didn't you make her the crown prince? The one who will be the empress in the future can have as many beauties as she wants. The group walked into the hall and sat down. Rongyu's eyes fell on Jinyu's little face, and he paused for a moment. If you really want it, you must have enough ability to command the masters on the mountain. If you can do it, Kangyun Mountain will belong to you in the future. When these words came out, everyone present was surprised. After a moment of silence, Chu Qinghuang spoke first. Jinyu is just a little girl less than 2 years old for the time being. Isn't it too early for father to make a promise? Didn't my sister worry about the child's dullness before? Rongzhan said leisurely. Why not leave the little niece in Kangyun Mountain for father to take care of, and make sure she will be more powerful than my sister when she grows up? Chu Qinghuang held her chin up. While father and mother still have energy, second brother can give birth to a child and send it over so that father can help you teach him. Rongzhan frowned. Why is he mentioned again? I think it's okay. Lulu nodded with her palm. Uncle Rongzhan is not young anymore. Others should have grandchildren at this age. Rongzhan's face darkened. Do you mean I can be a grandfather? Lulu shook her head hurriedly. Uncle Rongzhan is handsome, in his prime, and majestic. He is the most charming man in the world. He is full of masculine energy and can charm thousands of girls at any time. He is the dream husband of many girls waiting to be married. Rongzhan was so tired. Everyone in the room was looking at them, with interest, deepness, or watching a good show in their eyes. It's a pity that His Royal Highness the King of War, who was so majestic in the military camp, couldn't even resist a little girl at this time. If he wasn't worried about his father punishing him, Rongzhan really wanted to find a cliff and throw the girl surnamed Lu off to end it all. Lulu, Nan 11 said gently, do you know how old Rongzhan is? Lulu stood up and bowed respectfully. To answer your mother, I know. Nan 11 paused, raised her hand to signal her to sit down. How did you get to know him? Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix.